Hello everyone. We'll be discussing Parshat Vayigash, that's the weekly parsha. And we'll launch in directly to chapter 46, verse 31. This is actually based on a Dvar Torah I heard very recently from Rabbi Jacobs, the co-founder of my yeshiva in Machon Yaakov in Har Nof. Great idea, so let's go for it. Okay, so 46:31. And this is, by the way, the context is, this is after Joseph's whole family has come down. All of his brothers, nieces, nephews, his father has come down from Israel. So they've moved into Egypt. And there's a cheerful embrace, a very exciting reunion, very emotional. Okay. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and I will say to him. By the way, this whole verse is strange, so that's what we're supposed to be focusing on. My brothers and my father's household, who are in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, for they have been cattlemen. Their flocks and cattle and everything they own they have brought. And it shall be when Pharaoh summons you and says, What is your occupation? Then you shall say, Your servants have been cattlemen from our youth till now, both we and our forefathers, so that you may settle in the land of Goshen. Every shepherd is an abomination to Egypt. Okay. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh, and he said, My father and my brothers and their flocks and their cattle and everything they own have come from the land of Canaan, and they are now in the land of Goshen. And from part of his brothers he took 5 men. By the way, Rashi explains the 5 men as 5 of his brothers, and the ones who look the weakest and the smallest and the least impressive, and sent them before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? They answered Pharaoh, Each of your servants is a shepherd, both we and our forefathers. And they said to Pharaoh, We have come to sojourn in the land, since there is no grazing for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now, if you please, allow your servants to dwell in the land of Goshen. Now, Rabbi Jacobs asks a slew of difficult questions to deal with this verse, but I'll only pose a couple of them because of time constraints. He asks the following. This whole thing is very weird. Why is Joseph so particular about, first we get it. They want to live in Goshen. By the way, we're shepherds. We deal with cattle. We deal with flocks. We have flocks. We're cattlemen. We want to go to Goshen. Why this consistent repetition? Like, what is going on here? Why do we need to hear that so often? 1. 2. And this is probably a very big kasha, a very big question, is Joseph is not speaking or presenting his brothers and his father very well. To Egyptians, shepherding is disgusting. If we were to tell people, like, oh, by the way, I shovel dung all day, and that's what my father does, and that, by the way, is what my brothers do, you're not going to be a very honored and respected member of that community. That's found to be gross in Egypt. So why is Joseph presenting his family like that, especially his father? Yaakov Avinu, that's how he's presenting him. So what's motivating Joseph to present his whole family in such a light? What's the point? And why, again, this emphasis on Goshen? So the answer Rabbi Jacobs gives, foundational, is because Joseph wants to keep his family separate. He does not want them integrating into Egypt. Even though Joseph is the viceroy of Egypt, right? He's effectively the leader of the most powerful country at that time, and he certainly could have fit his father and his brothers into the royal palace, or if not the palace, then at least the honored outskirts, right, of the palace and the royal city. He doesn't do that. He wants his family separate, and the answer is because he wants to keep the root of the Jewish family, right, and the Jewish community pure and unsullied by the local culture. But now, if that's true, and again, that's a very intense idea, but this brings up another very important question, that the Jews are supposed to be a light to the nations. So what is Joseph doing, right? He's taking his family and he's separating them from everyone. It's like, no, we want to keep it to ourselves. We want to do our own thing. We don't want to be influenced by you. Just leave us alone. But the Jewish people, that's our goal. We want to influence the world to come to a greater recognition of God and to embrace, the Jewish vision of morality, effectively. And by the way, just so, we're more respectful of what the Jewish vision is, often people almost look, it's like, yeah, the sanctity of human life, we value that too, which is true. People have certainly come to respect it more. But we spoke on Hanukkah, the legal ramifications of the Jewish primacy on on life, right? On the sanctity of human life over autonomy. That's a big one. Look to Hanukkah for that. But there's a second one, equality before the law. That's a famous Jewish idea that did not exist back in the ancient world. I believe the Greeks, the only people who were allowed to vote were native born who owned land, whereas they're the only ones who were entitled to the full protection of the law. In Judaism, that's simply not true. You're entitled to the full protection of the law, and that we're not supposed to honor the respected man in the community if he's against someone who's not respected in the community. And moreover, if there's a poor man who's on trial against a rich man, we don't favor the poor man and say, whatever, the rich man, what's the $5 to him? It makes no difference, give it to the poor. We don't do that. That's an explicit verse in the Torah. So that's an important Jewish idea. That's our vision for the world. So seeing as we're supposed to bring these ideas out into the world, what's Yosef doing? Separating his whole family. That contradicts our entire purpose. That's his question. And within this lies a fundamental idea, foundational idea, that keep in mind who's saying this. It's Yosef. Who's Yosef? Yosef is the man who lived most of his life outside of Israel, who lived most of his life in Egypt, who was trapped in prison for 12 years, who then ascended to become the viceroy of Egypt, who is literally one of the second most powerful man in the entire world at that time. He's the one who went out and was the businessman. He engaged with the world. So what's he doing? That's exactly what he believes in. That's what he does. He's the one who's imbuing us with this message. And the idea is, and Rabbi Jacobs enunciates this so emphatically, and it's a very important idea indeed, is that if we want to go change the world, then we have to make sure we have a very strong base and foundation where we can remain pure and keep ourselves strong. Because there are very many people who go and they're excited and they mean well and they have good intentions, but they go out into the world and they try to touch the culture that they're trying to influence, and they may not realize how susceptible they are to, when you touch something, that thing touches you in turn, and there's an influence there. And if you're not grounded and rooted in your own, I guess, religion and in your own belief system, then it's going to start corrupting your own, and eventually it could come to turn you. So the lesson we learn from this week's parasha is, yes, the Jewish people, as far as we're concerned, we stay on the other side. We're in Goshen. We don't want to integrate and mix. That's because that's our base. During the workday or the day, we can go out and we can influence and be strong there. But we always come back and we always remain pure. Have a good Shabbos.